Hey world, welcome back to the lighter side. Nope, try that again. All right.
I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it in.
Welcome to the welcome to the RCA experience. I was looking at my lettering in the background while I was speaking, so that's where that came from. Welcome to the RCA experience. I don't know what episode this is. 16, I think, right? Yeah. 16. So no guests tonight, just us. You get us, and we're just having a conversation / update on where our life has been. We got some other topics that we've talked about ahead of time that we're going to bring up, but it'll just be a good episode, some good chat, some good conversation, some good catch up.
Yeah, one or two quick topics. It's not going to be a super long episode tonight, but
yeah.
I like
Canada Day for us. Happy Canada Day. I know you're not.
Oh,
Canada,
happy Canada Day.
It's like our 4th of July for you guys.
That's
type thing,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Canada's got a. I was actually reading about Canada's history not too long ago. It's got an interesting history.
Well, I think most countries do when you actually dig into the history behind things.
It's definitely got an interesting history, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. We're very segregated, like the U.S. is as well too. There's lots of different, the East is very different from the West, and so on. So
right now, correct me if I'm wrong or not, but Quebec's very Frenchish, right? Is that?
Yeah, Quebec is very snobby French typically, and they tend to do things their own way, and just they don't, I guess, follow the rules to keep it dumbed down. But if they don't like something, they're like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
So do they consider themselves Canadians or are they Quebecans?
They're Quebecers. I don't know what they call themselves, but
yeah. So, but technically they're Canadians.
Well, it's part of Canada, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I was saying with all the weird history stuff. I dove down the rabbit hole. I do that once in a while.
Well, you for example, you come out west, like in Alberta, where we're at. Most people don't speak French. We have to take French in school, like in grade school or elementary school, but that's all the exposure of French we get, and then it's an option after.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, like I said, I do that. I would be really good on like Jeopardy because I have a lot of useless facts in my brain.
Nice.
Yeah, because I just read like
random facts of the day.
It's just one of those things that, like, the email, like when you go into like email or if you go into like Edge and there's like news stories.
Yeah.
I am the worst at just clicking and reading those random news stories. Like,
hey, at least it's better than like scrolling on TikTok.
Oh yeah, no, I read.
At least you're getting some facts out of it.
I do a lot more reading on weird stuff that I see on that stuff than I scrolling. I don't know. Sometimes I get and I think everybody gets like this, where you're just kind of like not bored of social media, but it's kind of like, eh.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. I totally understand that.
You know what I mean? Like there's you're one of them, but there's certain YouTubers that I will absolutely have to watch, like a video that comes out with like you're one of them. Linus Tech Tips is another one. I'm a fan of theirs. There's a couple of channels that I will absolutely have to watch a video if they come out. But everything else is kind of like, eh. I'm just kind of like, I don't do the whole. I know death scrolling is like a big thing where people just do that for hours. Like my kids.
Yeah. My kids could do the same thing for sure.
Hours. I actually this week I deleted the YouTube app off of their stuff because I was just like, you guys just need a break from it, because my son will sit there for 3-4 hours and just death scroll, and I'm like, dude, you can't. Yeah, that's no good. Like, you can't. He that's all he would do. He's young. He's he's only 8 years old, but I'm like, there's so many better things you can do at your time. Like,
that's a hard one as a parent for sure.
it is. It keeps them occupied, right? So especially when they're busy and you're just rolling and you're doing things, they're not bothering you. So you're like, yay, but then in my head, I'm like, nah, this isn't great. I'd rather have them harass me. So
yeah, for sure.
We're taking a little bit of a break, especially at summertime. Good. Go outside, play.
Yeah. Get some sunshine, do some stuff.
Yeah. So I'll give it back to them soon. So I'm sorry I was a little scrambled. getting onto the podcast.
Sounds good.
I'll fill you in on my craziness.
Please do.
So right before you called, right before we did the podcast, I got a call from Capital One saying somebody had my stuff, and they were blocking transactions. And then they said it went as far as apparently they had my app information, like my log.
Like this is credit card info or bank info or
bank.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got a call saying that their fraud department just blocked a bunch of transactions, and apparently they were trying to bypass my 2-factor authentication on my app, and they're going to shut everything down. And so that was literally at like 25. I got that phone call, and I'm like, this is great. And that takes forever to be on the phone with any bank.
Yeah.
So that happens. The reason my background isn't and I'm not trying to promote the plane. I mean, it's nice, but I'm not trying to.
Okay.
There's a million things behind that, so I'm just trying to like get rid of the clutter look a little bit. It's more like
make it a little bit more uniform looking.
I don't want you to see behind the curtain. You know what I mean? That's
nice.
How bad it is.
Well,
so,
yeah, I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm kind of shoved off into the corner because I've got a top secret project sitting right beside me. I can't be in my normal spot.
So I redid my little basement lab like 2 years ago, and I did the floor with this. I'm in a basement, so I did the floor with this PVC floor tile. It's made for concrete floors and basements from Floor Decor. And after like the first year, it just started lifting. The little tabs that they lock into each other with, they were lifting and snapping. So I had like tape all over the floor, and it wasn't like cheap. Yeah, like so it's kind of like a male-female interlocking thing, but the tab on it's like 1/8 of an inch that clips into it on these particular tiles I bought, which I found out afterwards. They stopped making that particular tile and they discontinued them. So I'm wondering
because they had issues, probably.
Right. Which I'm hopefully Florida Core is going to make it right because they were warranted. So, anyways, long story short, after a year or two, the floor just did not look good, and I was super upset with it. And a family member of mine actually works for a flooring company, and he was able to get leftover flooring from a gym.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's actually, I'll show it to you. It's because it's actually really cool stuff. Hold on.
Must be rubber type stuff then, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so hold on, let me get a sample of it. So they use it for dance studios, and gyms, and it's this stuff. So it's got vinyl on the top, and then like a foam poly core on the bottom. Yeah, it's actually soft. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, it is very cool.
And the way it comes, that was one of the downsides to that other flooring stuff was the tiles were big, and because I'm in a basement, the temperature swings so big in the winter and the summer that the floor really moved, and that's what was making everything kind of crack. Yeah. And they say to leave a 1/2 inch. I did it. We installed it the right way. We left the 1/2 inch around and everything, but the way they interlocked it, they were just cracking, and I had clear tape all over the floor. It was driving me crazy. So we actually had a bunch of this stuff left over from a job, and this stuff comes in a big roll, and then they weld the seam. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool stuff. Like they plastic. Very cool. Yeah, they plastic weld the seam, and it's like invisible. You can't see the seam.
So that's what you're putting down in there?
It's already down.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Oh, so, and hence the reason for the mess.
There you go. So I had to take. It was one of those things where they were like kind of doing me a favor. So it's like, hey, we could do it this week. I'm like, okay.
I'll make it happen.
I'll make it happen. So I just had so much stuff everywhere. Everything is just everywhere. So then literally like 4 days after they did the floor, I get a phone call from the shipping company that my order from Dynam came in. Yeah. Which was like 80 boxes. Yeah. And it just happened all at once. So my basement shop, studio, nothing was back together from the floor. And then this order came in, and I'm living in hell right now. So that's why everybody watching, that's why I'm at a different location. I'm at my regular desk. I'm surprised it looks as good as it is. I'm using like a regular camera, webcam. So
it's all good, man. You got to do what you got to do. Sometimes quality doesn't matter. It's just about getting it done.
That's it. So behind that box is just mounds of stuff, and I have mounds of stuff everywhere. And that's why I actually, to help get stuff off the floor and just get stuff ready for the floor, guys, I hung a bunch of planes from the ceiling with rope.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of planes back there. That Avanti I actually picked up at a local swap meet, really cheap. It needs a little love, but it's actually a nice plane.
Cool.
Yeah, I paid $80 for that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty big jet for a foam jet.
Yeah. No, they're nice. They fly really nice too.
Yeah. So I have some plans for that one. People putting turbines in those, the smaller ones.
Yeah, the little 45 fits beautifully in there.
Yeah, they've been doing turbine conversions on those. It's a good sized jet. So nice. It's still beat up. But for $80, you can't turn that down for $80.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the shop's looking much emptier now. We delivered a bunch of planes to Montana Jets. So, we had 4 massive planes from the shop disappear, which is just like, it's like a breath of fresh air. So, very nice.
Talk about that. I actually, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about was Montana Jets. And so what did you get rid of? Let's count them down.
Well, we got rid of the F-14 XXL.
That was a big one.
That was a big one. The Su-30, which was also huge.
Right.
Those are the 2 biggest ones. We got rid of the Venom F-16,
which
had the Swewin 300 in it. And then we also got rid of the Israeli Air Force F-16, which has the Swewin 400 in it. So, yeah, tons of real estate opened up. It's nice.
So the 2 F-16s are basically the same size, and one's got a 300 and one's got a 400?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So the 400.
Yeah, the 400, that video comes out on, so the 14 video is Wednesday. This will come out at a different time, but
right.
F-14 videos tomorrow, or Wednesday, and then the F-16 video is a week after, so next Wednesday.
That Venom F-16 is a gorgeous plane.
It is really nice. And it only has a 300. That's a big engine for that plane.
Yeah.
But it's such a light plane that it flies really nice too. So like a 300 is ridiculous power for it. So
what would that be normally if it was? So you're saying 300 is ridiculous. What would typically be a good engine?
Most guys put a 200 series engine in there, so 200 to 240 depending on the manufacturer. So
okay,
that's the norm for it.
Yeah, no, that's a gorgeous. I when I was watching videos on that plane, I'm like, that's a gorgeous jet. It really, it's a nice jet.
Yeah, it was a good event. We had all the planes that I delivered down there. Everything worked out well, no issues. All the maidens went successful. There was a lot of carnage at the event, which kind of sucked, but a lot of carnage. But I brought back the Boomerang Lancer, my Pinky, which is super cool.
I saw that.
It's really nice. That one's actually done. I finished that a couple of days ago. It's sitting over there on one of the stands.
You built it already?
Oh yeah, it's done. It was. I started it on. I got back Sunday. Started it Sunday. Kind of laid the equipment out, and it was done by Friday. So
you're a madman.
It was like 5 days. Call it 5 days.
You're a madman. How do you like it? I like the color scheme. It's nice.
The color is beautiful. I haven't flown it yet, so we'll hopefully we've got this coming weekend. Hopefully get out flying. And then there's an event the weekend after, which is a 4-day event. So it's a multi-day event, and we'll have lots of jets for that. So BDX is also showing up tomorrow.
I was just going to ask about that.
So that's got to get built in the next week, and then we'll maiden that at the event as well. So
I can't wait to see that thing.
Me too, man. I'm so excited. I actually called them today because it's at the depot.
Okay.
I called the depot I went to their 1-800 number, and I was like, hey, any chance the depot's open today? I know it's Canada Day, because I was going to go pick it up, but yeah, I know it's so I'll pick it up tomorrow. So
now, where do they ship from?
So the planes come over. From Elite Aerosports, they come over from Thailand.
Okay.
And so they come over generally on boat. And then they come into the California port, and then they ship from California.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, you're closer to. Well, you're kind of in the middle, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's like if you're driving from California, it's like 24 hours of driving. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, that's just 24 hours. I know you do like big drives.
but it's pretty quick. Like the truck shipped out on, I think Wednesday. It left California and it was in Calgary on what is today? Today is Monday. It was in Calgary yesterday on Sunday. So
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
it only took like 4 days, 3 days to get up there. So
It's amazing how fast stuff ships now.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, for sure.
I got the call that my order was in the port. I don't know. It was like a Monday or Tuesday, and they're like, "Oh, we could deliver it to you on Thursday." And I'm like, no, I need another day.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
One more day. I have nowhere to put everything. No. So, how was the weather in Montana? Any?
So we got there on Monday. Drove down Monday morning, so we got there Monday afternoon. It was kind of raining and crappy, but we got a lot of the taxi test stuff done on
Okay.
Monday and Tuesday. So Monday, Tuesday it was kind of rainy and crappy. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday was all nice days. So yeah.
How many people roundabout attend that event? There's like a couple hundred people there, or 1,000?
No. It's a small event. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, like in the US based events. And we're going to keep it small. So like next year, there's probably going to be a cap.
Okay.
So all the people that were there this year, they're going to get first option to attend the event.
Okay.
And then there'll be a whatever the remainder is for the event. It's nice. I think there was probably 25 pilots.
Oh, nice.
I think Kelly's counted about 75 aircraft.
Okay.
So it's kind of that 25-30 number is perfect. There's a decent amount of space for RV parking, but there's just not a lot of room for like setups of planes, right? Like if you have ever been to a big jet event like Jets Over California or Kentucky Jets, stuff like that, like it's a fraction of what that is, right, for space. So
which is probably nicer because you guys all get to fly, right?
Yeah, you basically fly whenever you want. I mean,
right.
It wasn't very common to have more than one aircraft in the air, and there was times like Wednesday when it was nice, everybody flew like crazy. So Thursday, actually, there wasn't a lot of people flying. Thursday, everybody was kind of just sitting around hanging out because everybody flew so much on Wednesday. So
Yeah.
Thursday, you could nobody would fly for 15 minutes, 30 minutes. You start your plane up, go have a flight. Nobody's waiting in lines. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's nice.
And then our tow field event, which is in July 11th, is when it starts. That's kind of the same size, right? So it's our local event here and at an airport, and it's just 25-ish pilots and just great, perfect size.
That's nice like that. Yeah, the reason I asked about rain is because I was supposed to go to Knoll, and then my kid ended up getting sick, and then Knoll ended up, for like the most part of Knoll, it was underwater.
Yeah.
So
I mean, obviously they had nice weather, but yeah, their rain that they had was crazy.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't miss too much because I heard it was
no. Yeah.
And that sucks when that happens because that it's not like an event you can really rain date, right? Because it's a huge event.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's why I was asking about the weather. So you said there was a lot of carnage. Any of your planes, did they all survive?
Yeah, no, I was good. I had a bit of an oopsie on my Rebel on the Saturday, but it's already fixed. We're really close to being done.
Nice.
Yeah, there was there was a lot of planes that went down. And I don't consider a rough landing to be carnage.
Right.
Something where you're throwing it in the trash bin afterwards, that's pretty much carnage, right? And there was a lot in that trash bin. So it was rough.
Yeah, that's not good. That's an expensive trash bin.
It was. Yeah. And it's kind of I was telling the contest director, Kelly, I was telling him, like, we've never had a trash bin there before. So they've always had to deal with the garbage, right? And I said, Kelly, maybe we don't need to get trash bins anymore, because it's the one time that he brought in the big bin, right? And he even said at the beginning of the event, he's like, I don't want to see any planes in that bin. Not that you weren't allowed to. It was more about, let's not crash, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally. It was rough.
That's not good. We actually, it's funny. In the drone world, we have a thing where you never say last pack. And I'm sure other pilots do, so you never say last flight.
Never say last flight. It's always, I'm going to have one more flight.
Right. So it's the same thing. Like if you bring a trash bin, people are going to put stuff in the trash bin. It's like you're cursing the event. Yeah, that's fun.
Exactly. No, it was awesome. Lots of great people, great company, great food. Lots of good deals happened during the event, and it was awesome. Really good. Highlight of my year for sure.
So that whole topic brings me into the topic that I texted you about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to actually see if I can bring him up on the Facebook page here, the good old Facebook page here, and I'll share my screen.
Good old book face.
Yeah. Let's see if I can do this on this computer, because this is my first time using this computer. And I have 2 screens to share. All right. I'm going to bring StreamYard down here.
Oh, the sad page.
Yeah. So you were just talking about Carnage, right? So, and I texted you about this. So I love this group. This group's awesome. I think I have a couple in this group too. Speaking of which, you're talking about Carnage. I destroyed my favorite hand-thrown F-16.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. It's nose gone. It's not pretty. I'm looking at it. I might be able to fix it, but it's pretty bad. It kind of looks like this plane here. It's just pieces of foam everywhere.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's like almost like my jet right there. So there was a conversation in this group, right? And I'm not trying to blast this group. I love this group.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But there was a conversation in this group, and they were talking about turbines and how there's been a lot of carnage on newer turbine pilots versus older turbine pilots. And they were talking about the basically certification, people getting certifications, going out flying and crashing. So I'll propose a question to you. You were saying there was a lot of crashing. We're not going to call anybody's names or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Is it more people like who have been flying for a longer time that were crashing, or is it newer pilots that are doing the crashing?
Honestly, at our event, it's really both. To take a bit of a step back on this topic, I guess it's I think one of the biggest things people struggle with, and I remember when I first started flying turbines, so that would have been, let's say, 2010-ish. It took me a good 5 years to actually be proficient at landing.
Okay.
And it was about 2015 when I got my TAMS F-18. And that's the one. And started flying that plane that I really, honestly, truly became proficient. So what I see most people happen, and this is a great example because I've seen this happen with this plane many times. So the Ranger is a great plane. It's awesome. It is such a nice flyer. I've commented to many people. So I've owned a CARF Ultra Flash. An Ultra Flash is like the ultimate belly button plane. CARF's produced it for crazy numbers of years, and probably thousands and thousands sold. I would actually rather own a Ranger now, having owned both, multiples of both. I would now actually rather own that plane than a Ultra Flash. I love how that thing flies, but people have to remember that is a little bit heavier wing loading plane. So generally, most of the crashes with that Ranger are because guys get it too slow.
So
it stalls, yeah, and that's exactly what happens. We almost saw that happen this weekend, or the weekend of Montana Jets. There's a new guy out there, Ken. Ken's awesome. He actually came out there I think he's from Idaho. He's actually coming to our tow field event, and
Oh,
he did
cool.
his first turbine flight. So he's a, what do you say? He's a pylon racer, and we've seen lots of pylon guys come over to the turbine side over the past 5 years. But it's a whole different mentality of flying, right?
Yeah.
So he was buddy boxing with Klaus while he was there. Did a great job, awesome. But on one of his flights, he got it a little bit slow and stalled it. And it's exactly what happens to people with this plane. So yeah, a little bit heavier wing loading, and it stalls fairly easily. And there was one local guy last year that is pretty new into turbines, crashed his Ranger as well too. He got it slow basically. So yeah.
So,
but when you land it, it sticks to the ground amazing. It's just an awesome plane. So
yeah, so what you're saying, it's not really a reflection on the plane, it's more of the characteristics of flying the plane, is what you're saying.
yes, and it comes down to experience, and that's where the seasoned pilots can still have issues with landing planes. One of the things since I moved to Jetty and have started building planes for David over the past 4 years, I've started setting up my sports jets with a pitot tube in the nose. So my Rebel has a pitot tube in the nose. The new Lancer has a pitot tube in the nose. And I mean, you shouldn't be relying on those things, but it's really nice when I go to full flaps, it's calling my airspeed out for me.
Right.
So, I know that the Lancer, the Rebel Classic will stall if it gets to about 55 miles an hour. So if you're in landing pattern, just keep it about 70, 80 miles an hour, and it's beautiful.
Are you programming it in to yell at you when you get below a certain speed?
No, it just calls it out. So as soon as I go to full flaps, it just says 100 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. It just gets continuous every 3 seconds.
So another question, because if you go through the comments on this, a lot of it is no bashing product, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of the comments we're talking about throttle management with newer turbine pilots.
Yeah,
is that,
and that's where the experience comes in, and it's, people don't think it's a big learning curve, but it really is. Like if you're coming from flying gassers or electric, I mean, really anything,
right?
And you fly a turbine, it doesn't seem like it's that different, but it's so different, right? Like when you fly a gasser and you go like this, like your throttle's going wow, instantaneous, right?
Right.
If you fly a turbine and if you sat there and moved your throttle up and down, the turbine's not going to do anything.
Yeah, so it's more linear, right? So
well, it takes a few seconds to react. It takes a few seconds to actually get to where you want it to be. So that is a huge thing. And then you're dealing with landing gear and flaps and all that other stuff, which other planes have, but you're kind of combining all that into a hard package. So, but yeah, throttle management's a huge one. I see guys not being able to slow planes down enough. So it's kind of two extremes. They either slow them down too much and stall them, depending on the plane, or they can't slow them down enough because they think the plane's going to fall out of the sky. So it's that balance, right?
So I actually just went through that. I ended up selling some stuff to a local pilot who's actually an actual airline pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Started flying RC. He's doing pretty good. But so I went flying with him not too long ago, and he was coming in really slow and having a hard time landing. Like the plane was like, and I'm like, dude, you gotta just keep your throttle up during the landing and just keep it like the nice smooth throttle.
Yeah.
And don't go too low because you're having more of a hard time because you're such a low throttle. Like if you just kept it. And I could see that definitely happening with turbines. Now with electric or gas, like you said, he could just, flick his thumb up a little bit and he'll add more speed instantly.
Yeah.
I guess if you get into trouble with one of these, it's not going to happen that fast.
No, exactly. And so, for guys that are like on this Facebook page calling this, I don't know who this is, but calling this guy out saying, I think he was a new pilot, right? Just got his turbine waiver. Like, come on, this is all part of learning. Like if you're a pilot, you've been there before, you've crashed planes. Like ultimately, who cares, right? Like,
absolutely.
it's going to happen to us all. The planes are going to crash, whether it's you or the plane.
So for new turbine pilots who get their certifications, right, or their waivers, what's the best thing to do? Just buddy box for a bunch of flights before you do it on your own? I mean,
yes, but what I do with there's only one guy I work with, Stacy, my good friend Stacy. And this is kind of what happened with me too. So when I started flying, my friend Andrew we'd go out flying to the farm, and my friend Andrew would always come stand beside me and just talk me in, right? And I do the same thing with Stacy now too. So he's very proficient at landing, but when he's coming in for a landing, I'm talking with him and telling him to cut throttle, low throttle, off throttle, right? Gentle flare, gentle flare, gentle flare. It's just talking guys through those things, I think, is important. So we kind of have that pair. When he's flying, I'm always standing beside him, right? And I'm not necessarily on a buddy box with him, but it's just
you're there to rescue him if he needs.
Yeah, a second set of eyes for him and kind of talking him through it. And even for me, my first flights of the year, I always like to have somebody beside me, and I actually will generally say to them, like, talk me through the landing. Tell me when I'm over the edge of the runway and whatnot, just because it's been a few months.
So now EDFs are nothing like turbines, right?
No, not at all. They're not even remotely close. I mean, you're going to get some of the same stuff with landing gear, flaps, and everything, but the throttle management's just totally different.
Completely different.
If you added a delay, and this is actually a guy asked me a question when I was at Montana. If you added a delay to your throttle channel, then it becomes more realistic.
Gotcha.
For sure. So maybe if you're using that as a training tool for getting into turbines, I would do that. But as a proficient pilot, you should be able to separate your brain between, okay, I'm flying an EDF now, I've got instant throttle control, versus when I take my turbines up, I know I need some delay. That's my opinion on it.
So that's an interesting point, right? Because what I've been seeing, and it's probably different from it's different in all different aspects of it, but what I've been seeing is people progressing through, electric prop planes, and then going to EDFs, and then going to bigger EDFs, and then going, all right, I want to go to turbines, and then maybe ending up in this situation, right? Not realizing that the throttle management situation is completely different, because not everybody has somebody to buddy box with to train and learn. And
exactly. Yeah.
So maybe that is a good point. Maybe add a delay to the throttle if you could.
And my biggest suggestion, I think I know I touched on this in my my YouTube videos on, you want to get into turbine jets, buy two. That's my best piece of advice for you.
Two turbine jets?
Buy two. If you've just gone out and bought your first one, buy your second one as fast as you can and have another one in the stable. And the reason for that is, let's say this guy here on Facebook, right, that's his only turbine jet.
Yeah, he's done.
Right. So, now he's done until he either rebuilds the plane or whatever. So let's say he wants to stay in the hobby, orders a new Ranger from Boomerang, puts it back together, and 2 months go by and he hasn't flown a turbine jet in 2 months. Well, right, you should be flying continually.
Now, but realistically, he would have to send that turbine out, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and when you have that type of impact, yeah, your actual engine should go back for a check. Even if you can spin it and it spins fine and everything, send it back.
Yeah.
For an internal check and a rebalance, because chances are it's probably knocked something loose.
Yeah. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about it. I had this conversation not too long with my wife. Like, eventually, these things are in my future at some point.
Yeah.
And
they're really not that scary, right? Like, some people are scared of them. It's probably scared more about the money up in the sky, but they're, at the end of the day, they're just a plane.
Well, and you could have that into, you're talking about pylon planes. Some of those some of those things are super expensive.
Yeah. Well, you look at a pylon plane, you look at an IMAC, 120 cc, 25% scale aerobatic plane. Well, you're probably $5-6 grand into that. So,
yeah. So I don't think we've ever really brought this up or talked about it before. What could you, if you wanted to do it on a budget and get a decent setup, what could you get into a turbine for?
You can do it for, if we'll use the Lancer as an example. The Lancer's a really good example because there's other things to compare it to that I just recently put together. So I just finished a Rebel Hot,
Okay.
and I just finished the Lancer. Well, the Rebel Hot, I don't know the price listed on the website, but let's just say it's $2,500. I don't know what it actually is. But when you buy the Rebel Hot, you've got to buy the Rebel, you've got to buy the fuel tank, which is a couple $100, the exhaust pipe, which is a couple $100, landing gear, which can be $650 to $900. So your $2,500 airframe is now $3,500 ish, right?
Yeah.
You look at the Lancer, and it's pretty much the same size as the Rebel, but I think it's listed on the site for $1,899, I believe.
Okay.
And that includes that doesn't have an exhaust pipe. It includes your fuel tank and your landing gear. So that's the whole kit there for you right away.
Right.
You put an X60 in there or some brand of 50 to 70 Newton engine, you're looking at US dollars, about $1,800, give or take a couple hundred. So there you're about 36. High quality servos should go in there. So you're about, based on the servos I use, you're about $1,000 in servos.
Okay.
That's 46. And some electronics inside with a gyro, you're probably 5,400, I think, would be the cost for it.
And that's
pretty much all up.
That's a decent setup, though. That's not like
it is. No, that's a great setup. I mean, I didn't skimp on anything. It's got a Cortex in there. It's got all my Jetty equipment. It's got MKS 1220 servos. Like they're $100 servos each. 747s on the other stuff. Like it's going to be a wicked little plane.
So I was laughing when you were talking because when you did your thumbs up, you just had like a thumb with a bubble on the screen. I don't know. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like bubbles and then a thumbs up.
I didn't see it.
Your phone always does something crazy. It's like
good old Apple.
It was like bubble, 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 thumbs up. No, so what about, this is something I've been seeing a lot lately too, is what's your opinion on used turbines? Because I've been seeing a lot of that going on as well.
Yeah, and that's always it's a good way to get into the hobby. Like you can, you go back 10 years ago and you could usually find somebody with a twin boom boomerang,
right?
Which is less common now because there's so many sports jets to choose from. So, most guys would rather start off with something like the Ranger in the screen versus a twin boom. But the twin boom setup is a lot lighter wing loading, easier to fly, and easier to land.
It's funny that you brought that plane up because literally there was one on Marketplace local to me.
Yeah.
It looked like a little bit of an older plane. I don't know how old the twin boom boomerang is.
Yeah.
Turbine, everything, obviously no receiver, $2,500.
Yeah. So in that case, like if it's $2,500 and it includes the turbine, you really have to be careful. You almost have to expect that when you get that plane,
right,
you're probably going to have to send the engine back. Well, so I would factor in $500 just for that.
Yeah.
But if you know the person that's selling it, the history of the plane, or they can show you the history of the plane, and that's even more rewarding. But you should be able to get a, used decent aircraft for that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 range. You just have to be cautious that you're not buying somebody else's problem.
And go through everything, right? You
gotta
go through everything. And then,
yeah, I mean, and again, it depends on who you're buying it from, right? If you buy it from somebody that builds planes for people like myself or whatever, right, they take care of their fleet, you may not have to do anything to it, right? You just put your stuff in there. Maybe it's set up on the same radio system as you bind and fly. So
now, I don't know a lot about turbines, but is there a certain amount of flights and stuff that you have to do before it goes back into service? Like, is there like you've hit 100 hours on this turbine, it should go back in for service? Like,
it's the number is pretty generic for most manufacturers, so it's 25 hours is pretty typical.
Okay.
We'll just say that's the norm. And when you equate that down, that's a couple hundred flights.
Right.
So people think, well, 25 hours is not very much, but it's like, well, if you do a 6-minute flight with maybe an 8-minute total time of the turbine running,
right.
That's five-ish flights per hour, 25 times 5, whatever that is, right?
Yeah,
So like,
that's a lot of flights.
150 to 200 flights, somewhere in that range. So
yeah, and that's a cost. So like, when you see a cheaper turbine online, that's a cost that you should be thinking that has to be added to it, right? So
of course, yeah, and services are generically about $300 is the typical bearing service.
Yep.
And then there's always other stuff that fails. Like people have these preferences to what turbine brand they use, and I never have problems with my this, my that. They're all mechanical, electrical devices. They can all have problems.
Right. Right.
Eventually the fuel pump's going to fail. Eventually the glow plug that starts the engine's going to fail. Like that, it just happens. So
yeah, it's all very interesting. And like I said, I've been looking into it. When I saw something like that boomerang come up, it's like very tempting, but I'm just not at that point yet. It's like it seems like such a great deal because I know what some of the turbines cost roughly. I know what an airframes cost roughly. So I'm like 2,500 is a pretty good deal. Like that's not obviously older plane.
Well, sometimes you have to be careful with the engine that's included because the turbines themselves, the technology has changed so much.
Right.
Really in the past few years, but like if you go 10 years back, it's crazy.
Right. It's something that's going to have a hard time starting and running and
yeah. Like, I mean, I think about my Lancer that I just put together. The turbine is a 95 Newton engine, so it's basically got 20 pounds of thrust. It's the size of a Diet Coke can.
Wow.
And you go back 10 years and you'd basically be putting a Jet Cat like 120 in for the same size, and that's the size of it's like huge. It's like two of those turbines put side to side. It's not even the same comparison.
Right.
So you just have to be careful with that. Throttle response has changed a lot over the past few years. So that's
a good point. That's actually a really good point. You could end up buying an older turbine that just gives you more problems.
And you don't get, some of the older not that it matters really, but some of the older turbines struggle with telemetry and compatibility with different telemetry systems. And it's nice to have that stuff available to use. So
nowadays, especially with the newer radio systems and all the stuff that they can do and all the data you could have at the fingertips, I mean,
it's nice.
It's definitely worth having it.
Absolutely.
100%. Not even for, just being able to go back and if you did have a problem in the flight, I think you've done this in some of your videos where you had a problem with something, you were able to go back to the log and look at it. And, did you do that? Was that you that did that in the video? You went back to a log?
Yeah, I went back on my, that was my, my bull that I did that on when I had that issue, that crash.
Right.
So
that's the stuff that you're paying for now with the modern technology. You're having the
ability with that, I mean, not that it changed anything, but it changed. Well, actually, it did change something. It changed the fact that I found out that there was interference, which I didn't know there was interference when that first happened, right? So digging into that whole telemetry and figuring out what was going on really actually helped long term with any future projects. So
I was just actually, this topic came up not too long ago too. Was servo jitter from turbines. Have you heard about that?
I've heard about it.
Servo jitter.
I've never experienced it on servos specifically, but we do see it with our Cortex gyros on the rudder channel only.
Okay.
So what happens it's usually bigger airframes that are more like a drum. So it's actually frequencies from the turbine that cause it to happen. So what happens is as you throttle up, if you look at the rudder channel, you'll see it do this. And it's only the rudder channel that it shows up on. So the solution to it is we put what's called a hush box over top of it. So you just take you make a foam box, put it over top of the gyro, and doesn't eliminate vibrations, it eliminates the frequencies that are causing that in the gyro.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like a little bit of a dampener.
Yeah, on scale planes, you don't see it. On the smaller stuff, you don't see it. My Rebel Classic does it a little bit sometimes, but it doesn't show up in flight, so I don't worry about it.
So it makes sense, because back in the day, in the beginning of the quadcopter days of FPV, flight controllers used to be hard mounted.
Yeah.
And we would have issues from the motors going through the frame and messing with the gyro. So then we started soft mounting flight controllers with these little gummies that we would do, and that killed a lot of that vibration.
Yeah, exactly. Same theory.
Same concept. Yeah. All very cool stuff, man. I'll get there eventually. I got to deal with
I know. I'm excited for you.
Some of those airframes yeah, I'm almost tempted in getting one of those nice airframes and doing like a massive, EDF in one of them. But it's like the cost is, you're paying basically the same price for one of those really fancy EDFs. A couple $100 more, you could have a turbine.
If you buy, you think about a nice Schubler fan with a nice set of batteries, like, yeah, you're right, a couple $100 more and you bought a turbine. So
yeah, Schubler, Ramley likes a Vanny fan. I think he was showing on his video. Those things are really expensive too. They're big money for EDFs. And then you got the ESC, that's another huge expense. Those, and then you got batteries. I forgot. He actually, it's funny. He was talking. He did a video with Cletus McFarland where Cletus went to Tyler Perry's house. Did you see this video?
Yeah.
And that C-17 weighs 300 pounds.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
Most of it's got to be battery, right? I mean,
well, the batteries are a big part of it, but it's just such a big plane, right?
It's crazy. I mean, the EDFs on that thing are massive. I mean, I can only imagine what that all up cost on that thing is. It's got to be nutty. It really.
Well, and you start laying carbon fiber over that foam and your epoxy, that all adds up real quick.
Yeah. I was surprised. I forgot what voltage they said that was running at, but it was running at like some crazy number. It wasn't like, it was like 12S in parallel or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just something crazy. It's like, wait,
you put all the batteries in there and you've added 50 pounds in batteries, probably.
It's nuts. It's a cool plane. It is, yeah. What they were able to pull off with it is cool. I'm interested to see what Sal's project. We're gonna have Sal back on.
Yeah. Once they make a bit more progress on that plane, it'd be cool to have him back on for sure.
Yeah, they just released an update video the other day, so I've been following that one too. That one's gonna be cool. So we'll have to have him back on once they get it done. We'll have to have them on and talk about that thing, because that thing's gonna be awesome.
It's quite the history on that thing too. Like, it was basically a rescue project, right? So
that's gonna be an awesome project. I like cool projects like that. I like the difference.
I was chatting with a fellow down in Seattle. What's his name? He's bigger on Instagram. We were actually chatting about a year ago, I think. He's got a YouTube channel, but his stuff is mainly on Instagram and TikTok, I believe. But it's RCCAD 2VR.
Yes, I follow him.
I can't remember his name because we haven't talked in so long. But anyways, we've had multiple chats back and forth, and we had some discussions on him and I working together on one of the kits. So he's still obviously in progress if you follow him, but it'd be kind of cool to reach out to him. Yeah, it'd be nice to have him on your Terrence. That's his name.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to have him on here. So
I'll reach out to him because he's working on a cool project.
Very cool. And like the design he's doing it's next level, man. Like, and as he's going through these designs, so he makes a design change on the landing gear. Now he has to go back and rewrite all the manual stuff, right? So, and he's doing such a good job. I hope that we can get one of those planes in the shop, and I would love to put one of those together. So,
yeah, beautiful work he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a craftsman for sure.
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah. He's actually, so I'll reach out to him because I think that would be cool to have him on. Yeah, I've actually been for everybody watching. We're working on getting some good guests on. I thought Dag was a cool guest.
Yeah, that was fun.
George was or Jorge Escalona.
Yeah.
His whole, going through the basement of Grumman and getting planes. I mean, I'm still blown away by that. So if we can get, more cool guests, RC CAD 2 VR, he's doing a really cool project. Sal with their C17 project. We're working on getting some cool guests on that will give us some more history and fun projects and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dag just released I hope you're watching Dag. He just released pilots on he's got pilots that he's designing for his Patreons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like fully 3D printed CAD pilot. Cool. Yeah, he's always doing something crazy. He fascinates me. He really does, because he comes out with some of the craziest stuff, and it's just like, where do you get the time? First of all, you know what I mean?
Well, I bet you his brain's always working. So.
Always. But he puts out a lot of cool stuff for the hobby too, though. So
yeah, for sure.
So, all right, buddy.
Cool.
Yeah, this is good. I like touching base every couple of weeks and putting
absolutely.
Out, so we'll talk soon, and I better see some pictures on Facebook of the BDX as soon as you get it, like instantly.
It'll probably be unboxed tomorrow night, so you'll probably see some pictures tomorrow night.
I'm super jealous. That color scheme looks super.
It's going to be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta wax.
I'm excited to see it in person. So
yeah, awesome. All right, man. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks.
Oh, quick update on the giveaway. We didn't get a lot of comments, so we'll do it on episode 17. I'm going to push it a little bit more for the giveaway. I'd like to get more people into the running for the giveaway.
Yeah.
We'll do the running on the next episode.
Cool. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.